Really hate because when we talk about this, we got to keep calling them drivers because operator is a whole different thing under Tasia.
Yeah.
And I've fought for years to not call them drivers,
Yeah.
only for the government to step in and go, "You a driver."
Hey everyone, I'm Brad from Calgary.
This is Sean from Cambridge, Ontario.
I'm Terry from Cornwall, Ontario.
Hey, this is Larry from Pitt Meadows, British Columbia, and you're listening to the Towing Life Podcast.
Welcome to the Towing Life Podcast, where the ditches are deep, the trucks are loaded, but the drivers are not. I am your host, Towman G, and as usual, I'm joined by my co-host, friend, and former co-worker, a man with very strong opinions, Mr. Plain Guy.
What is going on, G? What is going on?
Well, we talked for about 4 or 5 minutes before we actually started the show, and I already have a headache from that conversation.
Oh, it's interesting times coming in the towing industry. We've discussed it before. We're going to try and keep it brief and entertaining. When it comes to the Tasia side of things, which we are once again going to review with July 1st, yesterday at the time of airing of this episode. So
Yep.
Ontario's new laws have taken a full effect.
Happy Canada
And
Day. Happy 4th of July to all you Americans out there. That's coming up later on this week.
ooh, that is it. I think for next week we'll take a week to put together a little 4th of July trivia. Maybe we can make a little fun out of it. If you put together a couple questions, I put together a couple questions, and we see
Maybe.
who is well educated on the ways of the South.
Yeah.
You guys were lucky enough to have your first debate down there. I did watch clips of it. Lord help you is all I'm gonna say. I'm
I
not
think I
gonna take
watched
a
the first
political.
40 minutes of it.
Okay, I'm not gonna get political on the side of it. I know they're doing it almost to get people interested in what's going on in the election because it is very early.
Mm-hmm.
However, what is the population of the US? Do we know this? Gee, I'm gonna look it up, okay? The population of the USA population is 333.3 million as of 2022. Okay, so it's a little dated. So 333 million people. Now, I'm not one to judge because Canada is no, perfect world right now.
No.
But out of that many people, this is the best two that you came up with. Like, this is the best two people out of 333 million. Lord help you. And again, I feel like a hypocrite saying that because it's anyone listening can easily go, "Hey, Plain Guy, look at Canada. That's what you guys came up with." Fair.
The general population doesn't pick who runs for president. It's the people who want that person to be
It's
president.
still the fact that 333 million people, and it has come down to these two.
Yeah.
80 and 81 and 80-year-olds, or 79-year-old and 81-year-old. Like, this is the So good luck to you. You can return that job to me when our election comes around, because I assure you it won't be much better.
No.
However, yes. So without getting into the US politics too much, you can have your say on who you're voting for on the next federal election. You can visit us at www.towinglife.ca. You can email us directly at thetowinglife@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook at the Towing Life Podcast. If you're watching over on the YouTube side, they've probably turned off commenting because we mentioned anything political. But if they haven't, you can head down below, leave a comment. Don't forget while you're there to hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the follow, hit all the buttons that you can hit. If you really don't like what we're saying, or you don't agree with Towman G's MAGA mentality, you can hit that thumbs down twice. It'll really let YouTube know what you think of his I don't want to say ways.
I just realized I've had the windows open in my house like a lot over the last couple of weeks because it's been fairly decent, and the
Yeah.
wind has like made my calendar fold in on itself.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Your calendar is
Upset.
failing.
Yeah.
Clearly it wasn't quality controlled.
It
But
was a
yeah,
free one.
so yeah, no, I do want to get into a bit. We're gonna get into a couple things. First, I want to talk about I am sore. I am tired. My arms are like jelly today. but it was all for a good cause within the company. So we set out a goal at the beginning of the year. It might have been last year, but somewhere around the beginning of the year, that we wanted to start focusing more on, what do you call it? Like employee happiness, right? At the end of the day, the dollar is the ultimate thing. Pay me to do my work. The extras are the extras.
Yep.
But we had set out a goal that we were going to every quarter, so every 4 months, sorry, that would be 3 months. Every 3 months, we were going to do a staff-oriented event. This has been on top of our policy where we have gone to every week doing staff lunches.
Oh.
So every week on Thursdays, we've been ordering pizzas. We've been doing some like Popeye's chicken, some whatever. We've been ordering lunches every Thursday for the staff that's working that day.
Yeah.
On the company as
It would
well.
suck for the guy who never works on a single Thursday.
No, the way our rotation works, I never have that problem.
Okay.
I never had that problem. But then we also want to do 4 staff events a year. So we did one 3 months ago, where it was called Archery Combat. It was a French name, but it's easier to say in English. So it was pretty much dodgeball with bow and arrows.
Oh.
With the like big like bean bags on the end of them.
Mm.
We played that down in Montreal, where we did that, and there was maybe, I don't know, 8-9 of us that went down.
Yep.
That was physically exhausting. That is the day I realized how out of shape I am. Like when you do that thing like dodgeball where you run to the middle to grab the ball,
Yep.
I'm like behind the airbag thing going, nope. Someone's gonna send one my way and miss, and I'll pick it up then, because after doing that about, like, we've played about 10 or 12 different games.
Oh wow.
By the end of it, you are like, my legs are non-existent.
Yeah.
My arms are even worn out. My wife had all kinds of bruises on her. So that was good, right? We got about, a good chunk of our staff. Wasn't as many as we would have liked. So today came around, and we've been planning it for a bit, and we were doing go-karting. Right? So we called a track nearby, and we set up the go-karting, and we had 14 of us, which is a good number, good majority of our staff. And the rule is that we have with the guys is, if you're working that weekend, there's a chance you may not be able to come, right? Like you might not hit every one of them, but we will make it that I'm not going to make it that it's the same guy working every week, every time we do this. So a couple of the guys I got coverage for, so they could make it. A couple people just didn't want to come. That's fine. That's their, their choice. It's not a mandatory
fun day.
Yeah, my wife came down. She was dead last. I'm sad to report that we have 2 very different driving styles. One of them involves leaning heavily on the right pedal, and one of them involves just driving Miss Daisy around.
You really like the skinny pedal, I see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was very hard on the pedal. So no, but it was great. You know what? Those kind of team building experiences, they're they come at a cost for the company, but in a day and time now where, hey, financially a lot of people are strapped too. Right? That chance for them to get out and do stuff of enjoyment, because they're so focused on just covering the bare necessities. Right? Little things like this is a good way to kind of, you build your team morale, right? We had lots of laughs and lots of anger, and I did take out my one of my admin people in the office, like unintentionally, but pretty good. I had one of my heavy operators absolutely wreck me into an outside wall that I thought I went by myself. I didn't even know he touched me. It wasn't until after the race that he informed me that no, I wasn't getting lapped by you, so I absolutely cut the wheels into you. And it was around high speed, like one of the fastest corners, and I went pretty good into it. But it builds good morale. You have some fun. It gets you to see these people outside of work a little bit too, right? It really helps build that culture within the company. And I think that kind of stuff goes so much farther than a company would think.
Yeah.
Right? Like you look at it and you probably go, okay, well, every 3 months we're going to spend about $1,000 on these kind of events. So $4,000 a year. It's a good chunk of change. But at the same time, what is the cost of training new operators? What is the cost of constant turnover? What is the cost of that? And we're going to get into that a little bit with the changes coming to SIA in Ontario. But what is the cost? Like, this industry takes such a toll on these people's lives that I think and again, depends on the size of your company. right? We're fortunate enough that we are able to, people that have worked for us previously who have, who are on good terms,
Mhm.
because I have plenty of people that aren't, that they are willing to, we've kept a good relationship that they're willing to come cover,
Mm.
right? So that I can have my staff down, right? If you're a company of 3, 4 guys,
Yeah.
having 1 or 2 spares
Mhm.
to go, hey, we're doing this event. Would you be willing to come cover a shift? And for us, it was like 4 hours,
Yeah.
right? It was 4 or 5 hours. It covered from, I think, 10 a.m. until 3 p.m., but they could have done it till 2 p.m. Like, we were back in
Yeah.
plenty of time, but we gave the guys time to go get lunch and everything else and
Mhm.
get back ready for it. So I really think, and I'd love to say this is my idea. It was the farthest thing from, as you
Hmm.
know me, I am not the um as care as much about personal as I should.
Yep.
I'm very much at an arm's length. So it was our owner that came up and said, hey, I want to do this. I want to build a culture. I want to build something, a family within this company.
Mhm.
And yes, we do it through the experiences that we go through and the trauma that we go through and
Mhm.
all of those things. But let's do it in a way that we can really have some fun with it. And yeah, I think it's been a great, great addition to our day-to-day thing. And something to look forward to every 3 months.
I think you're seeing a lot more of that in a lot of different industries where you got to build a culture around your
Hmm.
certain sort of business. And I've always been in the mindset of I'll get close to the coworkers, but upper management, I keep like my personal life, work
Hmm.
life completely separate.
Hmm.
Um, I've never once added any of my previous bosses on Facebook. I don't talk to them. I don't have their personal number outside of work. I keep it very, I show up, I do my job, I go home.
Hmm.
But I do like this idea of doing something every quarterly. But
Of
what if you did, okay, so because a lot of these guys have families and it's great
course.
to do the experience together as a collective whole, but then let's say, okay, I went and I did that go karting with you. And then I
Yeah.
got to come home and tell my 8-year old that I went go karting that day. Now he's going to want to go karting. Well, if we're all strapped for cash, now it's on me to take him back out go karting.
Mm.
What if you did something where you do every quarter you put together a couple of small packages and say here's 4 tickets, go to a Jays game, or here's 4 tickets, go
Mm.
do this activity with your family, or something like that, to show your appreciation in that regard,
Mhm.
instead of like, especially if you are a company to where you can't get that coverage to all take all your
Mhm.
staff out. I think that would be a better way to
Mhm.
go, because then you can just pick one individual or two individuals each quarter to go away and do something, obviously with a bit of their input of what they want to do.
Yeah. I
But
like that idea. I think that's
yeah,
a great idea. I think it would have to be, like I said, you'd have to pick employees and then, you'd have
mm,
to do things. Cause I mean, if I'm talking 14 staff plus their kids,
yeah,
plus their whatever for events, I mean, your cost is, starting to get
mhm,
excessive. Now,
mhm.
here's the trick I have for anyone that goes go-karting and has an 8-year-old at home. Don't tell them.
Hmm,
Just don't tell them. Right? Where are you? Daddy was at a work meeting.
hmm.
Right? Like, you don't have to tell me you went go-karting. Have that conversation with your wife or your other partner afterwards.
Okay, but what happens when they follow the company's Facebook page and they post a big team driver thing on their Facebook?
Yeah, daddy,
Eh,
daddy was, daddy wasn't there. That
huh.
was a different meeting. Daddy wasn't there.
Then you're just
And if
boldly lying to your kid, which I
yeah,
don't
100%.
recommend.
I fully believe in lying to children. I don't think I owe them anything. Unless I pay you. I don't require to answer your questions. Yes, Plain Guy does encourage and condone lying to children. But no, I like the idea you're coming with. I think
Mhm.
that's something a company could definitely look at, again, given their
Especially
size.
if it's a smaller company
Maybe
too,
if it's a
right?
smaller company,
Yeah.
100%. Now we have, and it's something that we tried. It's not really taken off. We had tried doing kind of what I call the legacy program,
Mm.
and this would happen every year. And there was tiers to the legacy program: 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, 15 year.
Yeah.
And based on the completion of that time, there was a set gift with a set dollar amount that the employee would receive at the end of the year.
Mm.
Right. So like a 1 year was like a nice like spring jacket, logoed spring jacket, like just something you wouldn't wear to work,
Yeah.
right? 3 years was a, I don't remember what we had kind of come up with, maybe a spa package or a hotel stay, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you could use the, even if you don't use even if you use the full amount and then have to cover some yourself for maybe your family and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
15 years was like a beautiful watch. Because,
Mm-hmm.
and let's be honest, 15 years of a staff and as an employee that you have in this day and age is,
Yeah.
especially in the towing industry, is no small feat.
Yeah.
So stuff like that to show appreciation. I think you can show appreciation every day. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm the first person that is guilty of not always showing appreciation in the right ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but no, it's come to a time where, like I said, the towing industry is very tough as it is.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing a hard time getting good qualified applicants,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're seeing an even harder time on keeping good qualified applicants,
Yeah.
especially when you get into the license requirements. And I just mean driving,
Yeah.
right? Like like a dump truck driver, right? That's what I compare a lot of salaries to. You look at what a dump truck driver will make for the amount of easy work that they'll do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm not, here to shit on dump truck drivers and say they're doggers, but I mean, you put a DZ license to use in that kind of industry, you'll have a higher hourly wage
Mm-hmm.
and a lot more stability. Now, on the
Mm-hmm.
towing side, you will have the ability to make more money based on commission and the extras that come with it, but it
Mm-hmm.
also comes with a lot more hours.
Yeah.
So, how can we start to promote the industry and encourage people away from those other jobs into our jobs? And it can be things financial, like financially, you have to be at least in the ballpark,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have to be in the ballpark.
Yeah.
You cannot be, I don't care if you're doing pizza parties every week, you
Hmm.
cannot be significantly lower salary at the end of the year for the same amount of time worked. If you are, it's never going to work.
No. And I think that's one of the hard things to do in mostly the trucking industry as a whole, us included, is a lot of people want to be able to start somewhere and see a path forward of,
Mhm,
okay, I can grow in this company. If I can grow in this company, the company and I can grow together.
mhm,
Right. And that's how you
of
get
course.
long-term employees.
Of
But
course.
if I come in, let's say I come into this industry as a G class driver, I get my license. Okay, how can I move up from here? Well, I can go get my DZ. All
Mhm,
right, cool. I go and get my DZ. All right, where can I move up from here? Well, I can
mhm.
go get my AZ and start doing heavy recovery. And that's pretty much the ceiling,
But
right?
most of your guys, yeah, but it's the ceiling. Okay, the AZ is your ceiling, but the AZ in the trucking industry too, that's your ceiling. Like
Yeah. Well,
if
that's
you're
what
in
I'm
a
saying. In the
driving
trucking
industry,
industry as a whole, right?
right?
Once you are a driver, that's pretty much up. Yeah, sure, you could become a dispatcher, but that's probably going to come with a pay cut. There might be an opening for a manager role, and still be a driver,
Mhm.
like a
Yeah,
driver manager
like a
hybrid.
lead row, yeah, lead
But
hand.
that's not going to be for everyone.
No,
That position might get filled, and it probably will hopefully stay occupied for at least 10 years for a manager,
mhm,
right? So that's,
you would hope.
I would hope, right? That's It's going to be hard to, just as someone coming in, seeing that as an actual opportunity to grow within the company,
Mhm,
right? So I think, especially in the trucking industry, even more so in the towing industry, because let's face it, a lot of it's physically demanding work, especially on the big wrecks. It can be
mhm,
hours upon hours. You're outside in the weather. You're working outside. You're dealing with upset people, and if the money's not there, you can go and maybe get a job for a couple dollars less an hour, or maybe even the same dollars per hour, and just drive.
mhm.
Just
Not
drive a
have to
rig
deal
and
with the other bullshit. Yeah.
exactly. It's not, it's going to be easier on your body because they probably still have air ride seats. I'm sure they do.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, you're not getting out, jumping up and down in ditches. You're not pulling out winch cables. You're not doing anything. You're not doing offloads, right?
Mhm,
You, some trucking jobs, you might have to unload a dry van or a box truck every once in a while. But
mhm.
a lot of times they got
But
forklifts and stuff like that for that. So I
but
don't know.
if anyone is looking for that, going like, I don't want to do this, then you shouldn't be in the towing industry to start,
Hmm.
right? Like we do know that it takes a special breed. There is you know, the seat fillers that we get, and there is candidates that we see come and go
Mm-hmm.
that no, they belong driving a cube truck, driving a dump truck, driving a whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is where they are going to end up, and you know it,
Yep.
right? They will never be one that are going to operate your bigger trucks. Like we're lucky in the sense because we do a lot of light duty, we do a lot of heavy duty, we do a lot of weird stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about progression of the employee and growth potential within the employee, right? When you first start off, you are just doing basic tows.
Yep.
That's all you're doing. That's all you're doing. Basic tows, service calls. As you start to progress and you start to earn trust and abilities and whatnot, you will move on to little more tricky things.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll move on to more and more. And
Yep.
then you have those go-to guys that you trust that, I mean, you can send out to a call solo without issue. And you
Mm-hmm.
know that they'll figure it out.
Yep.
Right? Like that, there's a natural progression with it.
Mm-hmm.
Then from there, we look at our operators, and we can normally see early enough within a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
I say early enough. It's a long career for some in the industry. But within the first year or two, you'll start to see potential for them. And in our case, we have a heavy fleet division as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you will start to see potential for them into the heavy side of towing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you need to wait for a position to open up. Sometimes you need to wait for them to be of age that the
Mm-hmm.
insurance will consider it.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them you just got to wait for their skills to develop to a point that you feel they are there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to try and not give them that teaser too early on, because you don't want to get the ultimatum set, or have them a little high on their horse possibly.
Mm-hmm.
But then they can grow into heavy. Okay, so now you get into heavy towing. All right, where's your first step in heavy towing? Well, the first guy out the door is always the guy that's just doing the towing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The rotator guys tend to be a little bit, on standby more. If we need them for tows, of course they're available.
Yep.
But at the same time, I want to keep, if I have guys that, don't have rotator experience, I'd like to keep them on the road doing the regular towing.
Yep.
Right? The other guys are in the shop, they're prepping stuff, they're cleaning trucks, they're organizing trucks. Again, you gotta base this on each individual operator skill sets
Mm-hmm.
and what they're good at. Like I have guys that are great at looking busy.
Hmm.
100%, or not being
Yep.
found.
Yep.
That is my and productivity in the shop happens, but very,
Mm-hmm.
nowhere near the level of some of the other operators.
Yep.
Right. And I was that same guy back when. I am the first guy to admit it. I sucked at pushing a broom. I
Yep.
sucked at doing that little tidying up stuff. I wanted to tow, or I wanted to sit there.
Yep.
There was no happy in between.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you have to do those things. I mean, if you're getting paid hourly by a company, there's requirements and things that need to be done. But who do you think is the first guy out whenever a tow call comes in? It's that
Mm-hmm.
guy. Because I want to get that guy doing what he's good at. Because he ain't good at passing a broom. He good at hiding.
I
So
think that's something too. Like we've said before, that it sometimes it's almost better to hire new than to hire someone with a bunch of experience but has all these bad habits. And I think with one of those in that regard, we were both commission operators for a very long time, right?
mhm,
We
mhm,
got paid when we were in the truck
mhm,
rolling down the road.
mhm.
So to come back to the shop and sit around and start pushing a broom, it's easy to get in that mindset, well, I'm not getting paid for this. Unless the
But
company has specifically stated and has in place that they're going to pay you hourly for doing bullshit in the shop, then that's fine. Then you know you're getting compensated for what you're doing. I'm not
yeah, but
just saying pushing a broom, I'm saying whatever task it is at the shop.
no, 100%. Now our guys are definitely structured differently, but then you
Yeah.
see the progression in the heavy side. He goes, "Hey, if I put in my time," and that's the biggest problem I think that I'm seeing with a lot of new operators,
Hmm.
is that they don't understand. Like they want to go, okay, I want to go from light duty operator to rotator extraordinaire in 3 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
No.
It doesn't happen. You do not go from light duty tow operator to management in 3 years.
No.
Right? Unless you are some absolute phenomenal, like, there's always the exception to the rules,
Mhm.
right? It always happens. But for the most part, you need to put in time. You need to put in, and not just time. Like, it's not just like a irrelevant number that a company sets out for no reason that you have to be in this long before you do this. A
Mhm.
lot of it is justified, and you have to have an understanding, let's say rotators. How do I know if one of my drivers is not ready to go to heavy? I ask them what their wire rope's rated for on their light duties.
Mm.
If they can't give me that answer, you're not even on the first step,
Yep.
right? If you can't tell me what your chains are rated for on your truck, you're not at the first step.
Mhm.
If you can't tell me what that sling's rated for, whether that be vertical, you know, then you're not ready for that next step,
Mhm.
right? So it's so important, but they don't realize that. They just go, oh, well, everything I've done, I've been able to do. Okay, but everything you've done has been guesswork,
Yeah.
right? Like, you and I talked back when, right? When you started early in your career, well, it looks heavy, so I'll put a snatch block on it. That's guesswork.
Yep.
There is no rhyme or reason or other than just visually looking at it. You cannot tell me what the numbers were and why you needed it.
Mhm.
It was guesswork. But a lot of new hires nowadays want that. Like they want to go, oh, I went 3 months and did all kinds of tows. I'm ready to do this. And it's like, no, you're not.
Mhm.
Like, there's so much humbling that needs to happen
Well,
in a
I
lot
think
of different ways.
the towing industry has always been seen as the Wild West, right? For the
100%.
longest time, especially the light duty. You can make it through 20, 30 years without knowing what your wire rope is rated for, what that sling is rated for, figuring out what your weakest link is.
I
Obviously, some
don't know
stuff,
if you can go 20, 30 years. You will probably die on doing something stupid before then.
but I'm saying in the light duty stuff, it's a lot easier to be incompetent in that regard.
I
No,
like
it
it. Yeah,
is
I'm
like,
in. I'm in. I'm
right?
buying in.
It's just as it's just stupid easy just to get in the truck and hook a line onto something and start pulling, right? Especially with how cheaply cars are built, you hook up your J hook to that little horseshoe at the back of a Honda Civic on the spare tire holder underneath the trunk, right? And you're
Yep.
like, oh well, that will break before any of my equipment does because that's the weakest link. And it's
Mhm,
easy just to have that mentality and train of thought when
mhm,
doing the light stuff. But then once you get into operating 100,000 pound truck and lifting things up and over
mhm,
guardrails, over other obstacles,
mhm.
you got to really stand back and realize the scale of what you're doing. Because if you
Yes.
want to become a crane operator, you have to go to school for that. You got to do an apprenticeship for that. You got to do a whole laundry list of things to become a
Yep.
crane operator. Well, aren't rotators just basically cranes with a different name and a slightly different skill set?
Ooh, I'm not getting into that debate.
I'm not getting into that debate either.
Do
But
you know
from
why
the
they're not?
layman,
I'll embrace it. Do you know why crane rotators are not cranes?
because you don't need a license to operate a rotator,
Nope. What do cranes do?
they pick things up and set things down,
What do rotators do?
rotate.
No. They pick things up and put things down, but they can also drag. They can also pull across. That is
Right.
the main difference between a crane. A crane can only pick up and lift down and put down.
Yep. Yep.
That is one of the main differences. But anyways,
Yep.
continue on with it. I probably made
Yes.
you lose your thought. I apologize.
Yeah. Um, so from the layman person out there, they say, well, that thing picks things up and puts things down. So does the crane. So that's pretty much a crane, right? And if you look at the skill requirements and what you need to be an actual crane operator compared to what you need to be a rotator operator in the towing industry, you can start realizing why the specific companies have these high limits or barriers to entry, I guess you could say,
Mm, mm,
to make sure your skill set is up to task. Because if you screw something up and you misjudge working load limits in a light duty, you're risking yourself and maybe a bystander. But if you
correct.
screw up in an 80-ton rotator
Mm.
with a semi suspended,
You're risking the
bringing
lives of multiple people.
multiple people and
Mm,
oodles amount of more money and equipment,
mm.
right?
No, sure.
Plus, that'll make the news. If you fuck something up in a 1-ton truck, it might not make the news.
You might get
A
lucky.
rotator flips over and kills 2 people,
Mm.
you're making the news nationwide.
No, 100%. And then the towing industry is its own enemy in the sense that it is put people behind the wheel of trucks and
That they
equipment that they
shouldn't
had
have never been
no
behind the wheel
business.
of. Yeah.
100%. And behind the wheel is one thing, behind the controls is another.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, there is steps that are, let's be honest, being taken to help rectify that. And that's where we get into our next point that we want to talk about. The wonderful TSIA, the thing everybody hates unless you're in the province of Ontario. And if you're in the province of Ontario, you still hate it even more because you are absolutely living it. So the government has gotten good at making announcements when it comes to regulation change. So July 1st in Canada, I wonder if it's the same in the States, but July 1st and January 1st are when big changes come into effect.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have been well aware of changes that are coming into effect in Ontario for a while. Like, this isn't new information that nobody knew.
No.
People knew it was coming. What was crazy is I recently checked. So as of July 1st, we knew that tow operator licenses were going to be required. And we knew that to apply for a tow operator's license, there would be a mandatory training. Those were the two things that we knew. We knew what the tow license was going to cost.
Yep.
And we knew how to get one because we've been applying for them ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
All my staff has their tow licenses. There was no cost. That was made very clear. Here's the cost.
Mm-hmm.
If you apply before this date, before the July 1st, when it fully comes into effect, there is no cost. You will have to pay that cost when the renewal comes up in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But what we didn't know is the mandatory training. And up until as late as Thursday, I believe it was Thursday or Wednesday that I checked, and I know people that checked on Thursday, the government, and this is before a long weekend. Don't forget, July 1st falls on a holiday Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So Friday at like 6 o'clock at night, the announcement comes out for the mandatory training.
So June 28th at 8 o'clock.
Yes.
Two full days you had notice that are over a weekend. Zero
Over
business days.
0 business days over a holiday long weekend. 100%.
Yep.
So the post comes out, and I've got some information here. Recmaster, puts out a post. Visit towtruckdrivertraining.ca to start your training, or visit Ontario, blah, 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 blah. Learn more about the new requirements. So as of Friday, they announce, okay, we have the training set up. Recmaster is the only certified company currently to do this. Now, I imagine there is a plan to have more. But so far, and I mean, good on you, Recmaster, if you're trying to make sure there isn't more. Let's be honest, right? You don't need competition in the industry, and if you can avoid it, you can avoid it. But this is long, like I said, Friday of a long weekend.
Yep.
And the cost comes out. And even the cost was hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
The cost was not head over to that website and the cost is posted right there. No. You got to create an account. Okay, I'm going to create an account because I want to see this.
Mm-hmm.
But then to create an account, this is again Friday night. You're not in the office. You don't have access to everything. I'm out on my phone. You need my driver's license number. You need a photo of my DL. You need like a lot of information to create an account here. This isn't just, sign up for an email newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily there was a couple people through some groups on social media, and you can always appreciate how people come together on social media when it comes to things they don't like.
Yep.
There was somebody who had done like a video of all the screens and stuff and showed the price. And I want to make this abundantly clear before we start, because I'm worried it's going to come off this way.
Mm-hmm.
I do not blame the company providing the training for the cost in which they applied. They have obviously done an analysis, and the money required to set this up and to implement this and to manage this program.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, they are not a nonprofit. They are not a government funded company. They need to make a profit just like we do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I'm worried that I'm going to say some dumb things over the next little while, and it's going to come out that I am angry at Recmaster. I love Recmaster.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I feel that they have done their analysis, and I am trusting that they have done their homework and that they are being as reasonable as possible with this.
Mm-hmm.
They came out with a cost of $849. Or sorry, my sheet is actually wrong here on your screen. It is $849, not $845. I meant to go back and change that.
Oh, okay.
So even that, my whole math total might not add up. Might be a couple bucks off. I apologize. But it's $845. So
49.
The process on how this works now is wild, and this is going to have major changes on the industry. Okay. So new hire that comes in after July 1st. Here's the policy. Here's the procedure.
Mm-hmm.
In order to apply for a provincial license, right, which is $195, valid for 3 years,
Yep.
a tow operator, tow driver, I hate that we have to call them drivers. A tow truck driver is required to first complete the government required training. So step one, any new hire has to complete the government required training.
Yep.
Through currently RecMaster is the only place you can receive it.
Mm-hmm.
From there, once they complete that training, then they are required to spend out $195 for a provincial license that is good for 3 years. Now, the thing that's important about this, right, is we have
Mm-hmm.
looked, what happens if I don't? What happens if I get a new employee and I don't want to put that money out right away? Because
Mm-hmm.
I want to see if this employee is going to make it.
Yep.
I think that is a very valid concern.
Mm-hmm.
Under TCA requirements, vehicle impounded if no or suspended certificate. 14.1. A police officer or inspector may, important comment, may detain a tow truck if the police officer or inspector is satisfied that a person was driving a tow truck on a highway at a time when A, the person did not hold a valid tow driver certificate, or B, the tow operator of the tow truck, tow operator being the company, did
Mm-hmm.
not hold a valid tow certificate. Same, a tow truck detained under subsection 1 shall, at the cost and risk of the tow operator, so again, now we went from may to shall,
Mm-hmm.
be removed to a vehicle storage yard facility as directed by a police officer or inspector and be impounded for 7 days from the time it was detained.
Hmm.
You can find this all this information on the Ontario.ca laws website.
Yep.
So you hire a new employee and you go, I'm going to hold off on, I don't want to put this money out right front.
Yep.
That employee cannot drive a tow truck until you have satisfied these requirements,
Yep.
which means you cannot get a true evaluation of this person as a driver even.
Mm-hmm.
So think about that. You can't, like, I mean, technically a road test is a little tricky, and the argument has been, what do you define as a tow truck? Can I bring them out in a flat, and there's always going to
Yep.
be these gray bullshit that we're trying to figure out. But
Mm-hmm.
they cannot drive a tow truck until they receive the provincial license. They cannot receive the provincial license until they receive the government required training.
Mm-hmm.
So who pays for this? And I want to ask you, G, in a case like that, we're in an industry where we are already struggling to get good candidates. Now, should all this money be put out on the employee? Do you see a balance with it? Like, what would your views be looking at that? We're talking over $1,000 before you can even drive a tow truck in Ontario as of July 1st, 2024.
So as an employee, like as a person looking for employment,
Mm,
I've had it multiple times when I am applying to a new job.
mm.
I expect, okay, I probably won't get paid for the first 3 weeks if I get the job, or up to a month, right? Just
Not get
because of how,
paid?
right? Because of how pay schedules normally work. You normally start and you don't, the pays
No,
are
because
like
there's a
a week
delay. Yeah,
behind or
your
whatever,
time
right?
is still being paid. It's just you're not getting paid.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So you don't
yeah.
get your first paycheck normally for the first
Two,
month that you
yeah,
work there,
3
right?
weeks possibly. Yeah,
So going into a new job with that, you're already okay. Well, whatever money I have in the bank, I gotta make that last another month, because a lot of people, let's be honest, don't have a good amount of savings,
of
especially if
course,
they're switching jobs.
of course. It can
So
have a good
then,
effect on your savings. Yes,
exactly. So I come into this towing industry. I was like, I want to give this a shot. Okay, well, before I can even get hired at this company, you want me to go out and spend over $1,000 before you even hire me.
before I even hire you and still have your 3 month probation, that I could can you. Let's say from that side,
Yeah,
I could can you before your time's even up. Yep.
exactly. I'm gonna go tell you to go fuck yourself.
Yep.
Realistically,
You got to
um,
really want in the towing industry for that to be worth it.
and how, like, this is my biggest issue. So let's just take, when you go and get a D license, you get a temporary D license after you do your road test, and you got to do additional training until you get a full D license. Right? You can do both courses at the same time if you do some things, but if you challenge the test, you get a temporary license, then you got to go do more training. we really should have something like that in the towing industry where you apply for the provincial required license, you pay that, you pay your $200, it's a lower barrier to entry, and that's good for 6 months. After that
Mhm.
6 months, let's just say you get one renewal on that, so you get a full year before you have to go and do the
Mm,
required testing,
okay, I like your
right?
idea. I think your time frame's a little off, but I like the idea. Yeah.
Right. So because as a company in that regard, if I got to hire someone new, it's costing me not just I could send them and do this training, which is $849 at Recmaster,
Mm,
and I could pay to get them their license, which I really think it's your license that you are a holder of. You should probably pay that. I might subsidize some of it,
mhm.
right? Um, but then if I send them to do this training, does that mean I don't need to train them anymore? Well,
Yeah.
probably not.
No, you're
But
still gonna have to. Yeah,
you're
that's the
still gonna
problem.
have to do onboarding. It's not I'm sure it's probably a weekend course Recmaster's putting on, like a 2, maybe 3-day course, whatever the case may
I've
be.
got to
I have
look
no
because it's
idea.
not an in person. 90% of it
Oh, it's not in
is
person.
no, 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 no.
Oh. Oh,
Yeah,
nay, nay.
yeah,
Oh.
yep.
Um, that changes things. That changes a lot of things. So, what stops me from paying for this course and just having it on a hard drive and redoing it? Just I have to guess pay that money again to get the actual certificate,
I
I'm
guess so.
assuming.
Like there's very similar. No, there is a like a accreditation process that has to be done.
Mm.
It doesn't say, it just says an evaluation you can trust. Our evaluations stand out as the hallmark of credibility and professionalism as they are proctored and approved by all requisite regulatory bodies. We prioritize the integrity of our assessment process, ensuring that each evaluation is conducted under strict supervision inherent to industry standards by aligning our practices with guidelines set forth by the regulatory authorities. It's a lot of just bullshit that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, because you just set the standards.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
You were part of setting these standards.
uh,
But I don't have
yeah,
an
like
account
this
yet to
is
actually go in and see what it consists of.
the whole thing is just weird right now. Like I have a really bad feeling about this.
Mm,
Um, I'm not in the industry anymore, so I feel like I probably won't get back into the industry, at least as a tow truck driver, just because of all this bullshit.
mm,
And to be fair, it doesn't seem like that bit high of a barrier to entry for me because I have experience. But at the same time, I've got experience. I've done the job for 7, 8 years, however long it was.
mhm,
Why am I going to start doing all this bullshit now just because the government tells me that I need it and I've done the job prior, right?
mhm, mhm,
So in that regard, it's like I don't know, like there's so much new regulation, especially since I got out of the industry. I would get back in, I'd feel completely new again because there's so much new things that I got to actually sit down and learn. Now,
mhm,
to be frank, I know a fair bit of it just because of the show and everything that we've talked about.
mhm,
But from, let's say, someone else got out of the industry last year,
mhm,
and towing's that job where it's something that a lot of people always fall back on because no matter where you go, there's always towing companies looking for drivers, right?
mhm,
So let's say I want to move to Alberta
mhm,
and I want to open a business in Alberta. I get out there and oh, I can't open the business right now because that market's just not there what I thought it was. Well, I can probably tow in the meantime, right? It's a
mhm,
good thing to fall back on.
mhm.
And something like this, if that person was in Alberta coming to Ontario, it's not as simple just, oh, I'll go get a job at a towing company,
Yep.
right?
So I do have a bit of the syllabus and a bit of the structure. I have managed to find it through their website.
Hmm.
Ontario Tow Truck Driver Training Standard. Best for tow truck drivers that operate in Ontario. Online course length 8 hours. In yard training 6 hours.
Oh, so there is some in yard. Okay.
There has to be, but I don't know what it is. I believe it's with a somebody else. That's what I don't fully understand because they're not sending a trainer down just for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Um, so the training course, upon completing the training course, individuals are required to pass certification exam. The exam tests candidates' knowledge of the towing procedure. I did get their syllabus, and when we go down to through everything, and I can go through quickly just what the sections are. I won't go into each individual subsection.
Hmm.
Course participants are required to complete the training in the following order: the online course, section 1 to 8, passing each section quiz with an 80 or higher to progress to the next section. Section 9, in-yard training, active participation in hands-on and practical skills assessment. Final multiple choice evaluation, 100-question multiple choice evaluation. A grade of 80% or higher is needed to pass. Upon completion of the final evaluation, students will be notified of their grade as well as any incorrect answers. It is easier to get the right or responsibility to drive a truck in the province of Ontario or a car than it is to operate a tow truck. And don't get me wrong, I think a lot of this is required. I just feel like the government has absolutely pooched this thing so hard that it's going to be damn near impossible to come back from. So the course outline is section 1, introduction to tow industry vehicles, tow truck driving terms and licensing requirements, and compatibility of light duty towing vehicle. Section 2, safe working environments, health and safety. It includes hazards and cleanup, biohazards, work-related trauma, and self-care. Maybe not the worst thing. 3, transportation legislation, regulations, and policies. So requirements of CVOR, your GVCR, your GVWR, tow capacities, load securements, lighting requirements, and the Towing and Storage Safety and Enforcement Act. 4, on-scene protocols, the tow operator's role and emergency response teams, and temporary condition requirements. 5, on-scene safety measures and management, coordinate with emergency services and dispatch, planning ahead to anticipate problems and safe practices. 6, towing, winching, extrication techniques, securement, calculating towing loads, towing vehicle equipment, safe hook techniques, car carrier loading techniques for motorcycles and trikes, hostile terrain and resistant factors.
This is all the in-person or online stuff you're
Between the two.
Okay.
Between the two. Oh, no, sorry. This is all the online.
Okay.
Roadside services, non-towing services, professionalism, customer service and documentation. They have a typo on their website. Safe driving practices, cooperative and safe tow operation, equipment capacities and maintenance, safely removing hazardous material and debris, keeping up with the trends. Section 9, in-yard training, 6 hours at the location of your choice. So very interesting. At the location of your choice.
Yeah.
So
So I
something to
wonder
look
if I could
into.
get a job and go and train people for 6 hours at random locations.
I think you could. Now, anyone hiring you to train people is a scary thought on its own. And if they call me for a reference, I'm not likely to be the best person to put down.
But
Um,
so in other licensing fields, especially for licenses, you can get if you are a valid license holder for X amount of years, you can get a signing authority.
yeah, like
And
a train the trainer, which I
yeah,
think is what the plan will ultimately be here. But
yeah,
again, then it goes unregulated again,
yeah. It
right?
goes way unregulated because okay, let's say I've done this for 5 years and I go and get my signing authority and I buy this course and I sit them down in a classroom in front of this video. Now, each company will have their own designated trainer to keep costs down because you'll say, okay, well, we'll provide the new employee free training,
Yeah.
right? But we won't pay you during this in class bullshit. So you got 8 hours of computer and you got 6 hours in the field, so 2 day training.
Yep.
You don't get paid for that, but it's free training, and you'll get a license. You guys still have to pay the $200 for your license, or however that works, right? And then you have no governing body
Mhm.
because there is no third party test, just like anything,
Well,
really.
there's got to be a third party somewhere through this, and
Yeah.
that's what I don't fully understand how it works.
hmm
So I'm in though. Continue.
Yeah. It's a mess, and of course we knew something like this was coming, but the time frame that they gave us. So let's say someone called in on Friday and said, "Hey, I would like a job." And you say, "Okay, come in for an interview on Monday or Tuesday, and we'll start getting you sorted." Well, now you can't because you can't even put them in a truck Tuesday. Now you gotta. I wonder what the availability's like for this. Like, how far out's this
That
trainer?
that's my question, and that is why, like, I think one of the big things, and it's something definitely we'll have to touch back on,
Yeah.
because, like, we're gonna need to go through it and get registered.
And okay, so in that $845, they say at a location of your choice, what happens when someone up in Manitoulin Island says, "Okay, well, I need someone to come and train this guy in Manitoulin Island." Is there going to
Yeah,
be an added fee for distance? Because Ontario is a big province, right?
oh,
And if
100%.
everyone's located down in Toronto or Niagara, Ottawa, which are the
Ottawa,
three
yeah,
main big
all your big
hubs,
cities, yep.
right? That guy might have to drive 24 hours north just to get to a northern towing company to do 6-hour training. Like that doesn't
Well,
quite
and,
make
and
sense.
that's where, like I said, it's still kind of in the air. There's still missing something on this. I know there is, because, like, you can't. You're right. You cannot send this one-off company.
Uh,
You know what I mean? Like, send them out there for one person to get trained.
no,
It just doesn't make sense.
no, doesn't make financial sense. Doesn't make logistical sense. Just nothing.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going to come of it. It is still a lot up in the air. Obviously, they've added the cost, and that's, it's a big cost. You throw
Yep.
that in, the licensing cost, and then the 2 weeks to train them.
Hmm. In house.
Uh, Yeah, in house.
Yep.
It can really, like, and then they don't last more than 2 weeks.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, it's definitely a risk.
Hmm. That really in-house training should be doubled because you got to pay an operator to train them.
Yeah, well, the operator training them, though, at the same time, is getting some calls done normally.
Yeah, but he's going to be a
Um,
lot slower. You know.
Ooh, what is very interesting is when you do visit the website. So I have
Hmm.
registered, for those that are interested while we're having this conversation.
Yep.
You see Ontario tow truck driver and training standard, and then you see
Hmm.
Quebec, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Manitoba, all coming soon.
Oh.
So I think we could see that this is the standard that is going, and we kind of knew that too. This is the standard that
Yep.
is going to be put across the province,
Across the country.
or across the country. Sorry.
Yep.
So
So you
it
guys in
is.
the States, when Colorado starts doing some janky shit with licensing and bullshit, pay attention to that, even if you don't live in that state, because you never know when the federal body might say, "Hey, that's a good idea what they're doing there in Colorado.
Mhm.
Let's mandate that federally."
I just really want to see. I'm trying to get a little bit more information on the in-yard training and how that works.
Yeah.
Select your yard training location, upload in-yard certificate. So select your yard training location. So maybe there is a way that you can have, like, a train the trainer program.
Yeah.
It doesn't fully, stay or say, sorry. Well, I just can't speak. So anyways, we will see. It's mandatory now. There ain't no coming back from it. So we did have a quick, government training, 845, provincial required license, 195, valid for 3 years. And that's something that I think the employee is going to have to pay. I think at least the tow certificate the employee is going to have to pay, because
Hmm.
that is theirs. If they leave your company to go to another company, that certificate carries with them.
Hmm.
Right. So it does make sense in that way. The training, I think it's going to have to be something that's going to be on an agreement of some sort.
Hmm.
I don't know what that
You
agreement will
might
be.
start seeing contracts say, "Okay, you got to sign this contract and be here for X amount of years to
A
pay off
year,
this training."
a
Yeah.
year, a
Yeah.
year, and we will absorb the cost of this. Anything less than a year, you're required to pay out of your final paycheck,
Yeah.
which again is just going to put more stress and possibly, push people away more from wanting to get into our industry.
And you will end up having guys who might realize a month in that this isn't for them,
Mhm.
but they're going to do the absolute bare minimum and stick out that year
Yep.
to try to get fired so they don't have to pay that money out of their pocket, right?
But I like your idea. I like the idea that you should almost apply for, like, a towing learner's permit
Yep.
that is valid for maybe only like 3 months.
Yep.
And you pay that, it's a fraction of the other fee, or fucking leave it the same fee. I don't even care. I think it's
Yep.
reasonable. For 195 within that 3 months, and maybe renewable once, like you said, or
Yep.
extendable once, you are required to complete that training.
Mm-hmm.
right? And then if you do not complete that training at the end of it, your license is then suspended. You no longer have a tow operator certificate. Once your training is complete, you can then apply at any point within that first 3 months for a full 3-year permit.
Mm-hmm.
Once your training is complete, I think that is a very reasonable approach, and I think that is something that would probably have got brought up if the government actually sat down with its stakeholders, like it said it did, that weren't the insurance company
Mm-hmm.
and weren't, you know what I mean, the MTO and everything, and actually sat with towers and said, hey, look, this is what we're thinking of doing, right? You came up with that idea on the spot.
Yeah.
Imagine if they actually took into account the towing industry and listened to people and go, hey, maybe this will make more sense. Maybe this is something we can work on. Maybe all that kind of stuff. So if you are a tower in the province of Ontario, we do wish you luck as we continue on through these wonderful new times that are facing us.
Yeah.
Have your say on it. What do you think of the DCIA? If you're an American state and you want to see what your future could hold, I know you guys are facing all your own problems down there. You're seeing the future right now. You are seeing. Don't think that this is going to be exclusive to Canada. You know, North America tends to bring in a lot of very similar policies and procedures. This could be next up. So I know certain states actually do require a towing license, but it is a very different practice to get it. It is through like almost like a driver's license, a written test you have to go for. And I'm willing to bet it doesn't cost $845 plus the $200 for the license.
Yeah.
So on behalf of myself and my wonderful co-host, Mr. Toman G, we do thank you. Don't forget, towinglife@gmail.com, towinglife.ca, Towing Life Podcast on Facebook, or leave your comment down below on YouTube. We thank you for joining us for episode 142, and we can't wait to see you again next week. Take care.
Doodles.
You actually came up with a really good idea. You should have been on the panel of discussion. They should have taken what you said and thought about it.
Yeah, they should have.
And I have that recording so that you can have that for me to say, I got a gold star.
I got
No,
gold
it's-
star
Fuck
from
the towing
Daddy
industry.
Plane Guy.
Fuck the towing industry. It's all over the place.